Good evening and welcome everyone to the briefing session of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. Today is Wednesday, October 28th, 2020, and we are about to have the briefing meeting. The agenda and materials are available online at the Town of Kernersville website, toknz.com. We'll begin this evening with an invocation, which will be delivered by our Community Development Director, Mr. Jeff Hatling. Jeff, we cannot hear you. If you could turn your microphone on.
Only God can hear him.
It was a silent prayer, or I'll go into a live one. Lord, thank you for gathering us tonight and this evening of work for this community, and thank you for blessing us to be a part of this community, guided decision makers, and we ask you to watch over our community as we see the COVID rise, and let people be careful and guide us, Lord, on how we should be. And thank you for giving us this election season and be blessing this democracy, and give us wisdom tonight. In these things we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Jeff. On the note of COVID cases are rising in Forsyth County, so it is important for everybody to remember to wear a mask, to social distance, to frequently wash your hands and clean surfaces, and to follow the other recommendations of the State Department of Health and the CDC. Cases in Guilford are especially on the rise, and Guilford, which Kernersville is part of, is a county of concern. So vigilance is important given the metrics in our state. So thank you for including that. All right, we'll begin, since this is a remote meeting. It's a remote meeting, but if you are not able to participate in the meeting remotely, the courtroom is open and you can attend in person at Town Hall. All right, so we'll begin by a roll call. This is also a good opportunity to check everybody's microphone and make sure we can hear everyone. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton.
Here.
Thank you. Alderman Bruce Boyer.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Kenny Cruz.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Chris Thompson.
Present, thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Joe Penix.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Town Manager Curtis Swisher is here.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Our Town Clerk Keith Hooker.
Present.
Thank you. Our Community Development Director Jeff Hatling just gave the invocation. Our IT Director is here. Our Town Attorney John Wolf.
Present, Mayor.
Thank you. Our Finance Director Franz Ader, is he here today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Parks and Rec Director Ernie Pages.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Chief Tim Summers.
He's in the courtroom.
Thank you. Fire Rescue Chief Scott Alderman.
Everyone, present.
Thank you. Public Services Director Doran Maltba.
Present.
Thank you. Our Human Resources Director Crystal Tanner should be in the courtroom. Is that correct, Curtis?
She's in the courtroom, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Is there anybody else involved in this call that I have not called? Curtis, do you see any more of our staff in the courtroom?
No, ma'am.
Adam Hutchins.
Adam, he's back.
Okay. Adam Hutchins, our IT Director. All right. So this is our briefing meeting. When we have the regular meeting, we'll have several public hearings. There are, I believe, 6 public hearings on the agenda. For public hearings, you may come and speak at the courtroom during the public hearing. You may also provide written comments by email to khooker, so our town clerk's email address, khooker@toknc.com, for up to 24 hours after the conclusion of the public hearing. Or you may call in with your comments. So this is a briefing meeting, so it's an opportunity for the board to ask questions and have a preview of the agenda. So if you'd like to comment, the opportunity to comment will be next week. Because of the election, we will be having our meeting instead of on Tuesday, we'll be having it on Wednesday, the first Wednesday in November. All right. So we'll begin with public hearing 1A, which is a rezoning, zoning docket K666A1. Tony Alford is bringing the zoning for property located at 512 Pineview Court and 109 English Street. I'd like our Community Development Director, Jeff Hatling, to review the case briefly for us.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. This piece of property behind Piedmont Federal was zoned some time ago. It had a couple of commercial zonings. It was rezoned to commercial business. Later, Tony Alford went in front of the planning board for a planning board review for an apartment. And the apartments also had some storage. This is now a rezoning of that same apartment area, but instead he's creating a mixed use, creating a small area for potential commercial uses such as office or arts and crafts or miscellaneous retail. Planning board and staff held a public hearing. Planning board staff recommend approval as presented.
Okay. Do any of the aldermen have any questions about this?
Jeff, just to make sure I understand, though, I think I do. A and B are two similar buildings, both by Tony, and the A one is the one that the parking lot would connect with English Street. Is that correct?
The parking lot would not connect. It would have two accesses, Harmon Lane and Pineview Court. It would not access English.
Okay, but that's the one closest to English Street.
Yes, correct. There's a parking lot. There's an old residential lot.
Yeah, I've been by it. Yes.
And the English Street property is all zone RM18 currently.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? All right, in that case, we'll move on to item 1B, another public hearing rezoning, zoning docket K673A1, again brought by Tony Alford for property located at 515 Pineview Court. Mr. Hatling?
Yes, this is the old High Point Bank site. This is pretty much an identical apartment building proposed at 512 Pineview. It has a little less parking available. The planning board brought up a concern regarding that. We've asked Tony Alford to provide us some additional information on how any backup parking would work. As you may know, he owns a gateway area where the Mexican restaurant is, a new medical office, and a two-story office area. So he's supposed to provide some additional information on that parking overflow. But planning board staff, the public hearing was held. There was no public comments. Staff and planning boards recommend approval as presented.
Okay, do any of the aldermen have any questions?
And so then he would demolish the High Point Bank building. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
And the building's going to be 4 stories. Is that correct?
Yes, both 512 and 515 are 4-story buildings. And they would have their multifamily urban, and the amenities for urban, they do not have to have a common outside area. But there's a list of amenities for these projects: elevator, a workout area, meeting area, so forth. So there has more like urban amenities. Most likely, the residents would be young professionals or retirees looking for some temporary housing and more of a walkable environment.
How many additional parking spaces is Mr. Alford going to try to come up with? Do you know?
I do not. I talked to him. I talked to him the day after the planning board meeting. We had some discussion, and matter of fact, I emailed him today, reminding him that we need some additional information. So hopefully I can get that prior to the public hearing, or you may provide that during the public hearing in front of the alderman.
Because I've watched part of the planning board, but they really did discuss parking on this one, right?
Correct. Yep. This is the one the other one had a better parking ratio. Plus, the other one has Harmon Lane that, a visitor could park on Harmon Lane. But in this one, there was a little tighter. And so, so I told the planning board after the planning board meeting, I said, I'll approach Tony and to encourage him to provide some additional information on his backup plan for parking.
Thanks for being
Thank you,
proactive.
And is this building going to be far enough off of the highway that we don't have to worry about a noise wall by the traffic and all 66 and the lights? Or would that be any of our responsibilities?
That would not be a responsibility. However, it is a hard wall construction. I'm using brick and rock. And of course, with the current standards for installation and so forth, most modern buildings are quite soundproof just because of the windows and insulation requirements for the weather control. And also, like I said, it's a hard wall construction, so they'll be pretty tight buildings.
Are there any further questions?
Thank you, Jeff.
One more. I have one more. Sorry. Is there a traffic study done in that area, Jeff?
No. What the earlier traffic studies we looked at was when Gateway was originally submitted. The developer wanted a traffic light at that intersection of Pineview and 66, but it's too close to the other traffic lights. I believe the staff, we informed the planning board. That was one of the questions of the planning board. The only change you'll see in the future out there at that intersection will most likely be a median put in to prevent a right in or right out. I mean, to cause it only to be the right in, right out, similar to South Main Street and Arbor Hill Road, or Century Boulevard. So, eventually you'll probably see NCDOT put a median in. I can't say when, will it be next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but that's just your logical progression of those 5-lane section roadways, that eventually a median goes in to prevent left turns.
Thank you.
Are there further questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 1C. Again, a public hearing. This is zoning docket K 785. Jim Taylor, agent for others, for property located in the 800 block of Old Winston Road. Mr. Hatling?
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. This is a kind of interesting project. Jim Taylor is proposing a all brick building that would be a clubhouse museum for classic cars. There's several of these around the state and around the country. It's where a person could be a member, and they would park their car or motorcycle, or they're actually looking at maybe hanging an airplane in there. And it's just so a place where you can exhibit. They might have, open to the public at some time. This is right across from J. Peppers, next to the new residential development, that the gated apartment rental community. Jim worked closely with his adjacent property owners. We worked out specific conditions to address some of the concerns. And so the public hearing was held. There was no opposition. Staff and planning board is recommending approval as presented. And like I said, if you look at the conditions, there's some numerous conditions to address a couple concerns from adjacent property owners.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
I want to just make a statement. I'm the listing broker on this property, so I've got a conflict of interest, and I would need to ask to have a motion be made to recuse myself from, or not myself, but recuse from the discussion and vote on this next week.
Okay.
And Mayor John Wolf, following through with that, Jeff has been aware that I'm involved in this. I'm actually selling the property to Jim as trustee of the Elizabeth Burns Trust. And so I haven't answered, there have been no questions from a legal standpoint, but I would not want to be asked any questions from the legal standpoint next Tuesday.
Okay. Are there any questions of Mr. Hatling at this time?
I spoke with Jim on it too, and he assured me that all the neighbors that he had talked with were in full agreement of it. And if I need to make a motion for Chris or John to whatever need be, I'm willing to make that motion.
Okay. Well, I think would just need to do that for Wednesday night. Is that correct, Curtis?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So we're not taking a vote today, and John and Chris are not involved in the discussion of it today because we're not discussing this. We're just simply asking questions to staff. So they've let us know. So Kenny, the appropriate time to make that motion would be on Wednesday night. So that would be great if you can do that. All right. Is there any other questions about this case or comments that the board needs to be aware of? All right, we will move on then to item 1D. It's a public hearing text amendment. This is zoning docket KT 244, Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville, and it's for a zoning text amendment to the UDO relating to the environmental ordinances and watershed protection. Mr. Hatling?
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. This is a pretty straightforward text amendment. When a residential development goes low density, our current standards allow them to cover up to 20% more coverage. We certainly encourage low density projects. They're better for stormwater control. State law allows it to be up to 24% coverage. This text amendment would have the original developer still being allowed to do that 20% coverage, but give that additional coverage to the future property owners to do sheds or patios or garages. So just kind of add some flexibility for future activities on some residential lots. We had a couple subdivisions that were kind of running tight on their percent coverages, and so this is going to allow us to free up some space for them to do their additions at their residential homes. So the planning board and staff held a public hearing. There was no opposition. Staff and planning boards recommend approval as presented.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Hatling?
No, thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to item 1E, which is another public hearing on a text amendment. Zoning docket KT 245, Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville. And this is another amendment to the UDO, and it is related to development standards, subdivisions, and preliminary subdivision approval. Mr. Hatling?
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. Over the next several months, we'll see numerous text amendments associated with the planning legislation that covers municipalities. It originally was 160A. And the legislators amended that section to 160D. The State Bar Association worked with numerous other groups throughout the state, county, municipalities, planners, developers on modernizing the language of our planning and zoning legislation. This is the first section. We call it 160D Part 1 that was first adopted for changes. And so this is our first of many text amendments that you'll be seeing. It's pretty straightforward. These are just pretty much taken right out of state statute and adjusted for our Unified Development Ordinance. So staff is recommending approval, and planning board is recommending approval of these 160D changes to address the state of North Carolina changes to municipal planning and zoning legislation.
Okay, are there any questions? All right, then we will move on to item 1F, which is another public hearing text amendment. KT 247 is the docket number. It's Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville, and another zoning text amendment to the UDO relating to use conditions and residential buildings and buffer yards. Mr. Hatley?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Morgan. When we were doing the review for the old High Point Bank site, the residential building urban use that's being considered had a provision for a certain type of buffer yard when it's next to commercial and industrial. Staff felt it was a little excessive next to the commercial. We're recommending the buffer yard be changed to a street yard when it's next to a commercial. And so this is somewhat associated with the earlier rezoning, but this is kind of just a cleanup to the residential building urban. I think we've only used residential building urban once before. And so the original UDO was adopted in 1994. And so once in a while, you'll just find a provision that you never really had to look at. And so this is one we feel we need to do a text amendment for. Planning board and planning staff is recommending approval as presented.
Do we need to adopt this if it is going to be adopted, or determine whether or not it's going to be adopted prior to hearing the prior case?
No, you would not have to. Even if you denied the 515 Pineview Drive case, staff would still recommend approval of this amendment. In my presentation on 515, I cover this text amendment also. But certainly if you approve 515 Pineview, I also recommend you approve this text amendment.
If the board, since the board has not heard the case and has not approved it, we've got to consider any possible scenario, which is approval or denial of 515 and
Correct.
Approval or denial of this. So is there something about the case involving 515 for the, since it is a single phase rezoning, that the developer would need to know whether or not this is approved prior to that case, which would be, I understand, item 1B being considered?
If this was, if the 515 was approved and this was not approved, he would just have to adjust his parking layout. So the project is still could happen, but he would have to adjust his parking layouts. It's basically next to the Zaxby's.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from any of the aldermen?
No.
All right. That brings us to 2A in the public session, speakers from the floor. 2B, consideration of the community center recreation plan. Mr. Swisher or Mr. Pages?
Yeah, Mayor Morgan, this was discussed at last month's meeting. There were several questions from the board. I think Mr. Pages answered those questions. They were sent out to the Board of Aldermen. The plan has been posted on our website as well with that link. So, we won't go back through the plan, not planning to go over the plan again Wednesday night, but we'll be glad to answer or clarify any questions, follow-up questions or old questions that the board may have regarding the plan. And again, it's just basically adoption of the plan. It's not approval of funding or any of that. That would all come back at separate times to the board.
All right. Do the members of the Board of Aldermen have any questions?
Not a question, just a comment. Both Ernie and Curtis have provided helpful information, so it gives me a little bit better handle on the concept.
And I have one statement. I just want to thank everyone for making that reply all, so we could all read all that information as one. Thank you.
And the information Alderman Thompson's referring to is posted along with the recreation plan, correct? That was the financials for the operating, I believe.
I honestly do not know if that's posted or not. I have not looked to see.
Madam Mayor, I do not have that, so I have not posted that.
Okay, we should take the information that Chris is referring to and make sure it's available on the website so that the full public can be involved in the discussion.
I'll have Curtis email that to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions about the community center recreation plan? All right, item 2C is consideration of an interlocal agreement for the formation of a joint narcotics task force.
Madam Mayor, Chief Summers has been working with the chief in Winston-Salem and the Forsyth County Sheriff to form a joint narcotics task force. You have that agreement in your packet that will actually have the formation of that task force if the board so approves of it on our end. It lays out the stipulations of that, monetary contributions, who's responsible for what. Basically, we already have a narcotics building where our narcotics agents are. So that would be our contribution to the task force along with our officers. It will function very similar to the DWI task force that we are currently a member of here in Forsyth County. That's been a good task force, and it has worked very well in curbing the DWIs that we see out on the road. And so we're hopeful that the joint narcotics task force will also have the same impact on the narcotics use that we're seeing throughout the county.
Okay, are there any questions? All right. Item D is consideration of a mutual assistance agreement with Forsyth County and the city of Winston-Salem. Mr. Swisher?
And this is a mutual aid agreement that will allow us to assist the city of Winston-Salem or Forsyth County in different operations and assist them on different calls. We've had a mutual aid agreement for years with both of those agencies. And so this is a renewal of that, and it will also allow us to participate in the narcotics task force.
Okay, are there any questions? All right, moving on then to item 2E, consideration of acceptance of bid for the demolition of the decommissioned Abbots Creek wastewater treatment plant. The town clerk sent this out to the board by email this afternoon. Has it been posted on the Town of Kernersville website?
Has it been posted, Keith?
Yes, Mayor, it has.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Swisher, if you'd like to address this item.
This is the old Abbots Creek wastewater treatment plant, as it says in your memo. For those of you that are not familiar with it, this is the wastewater treatment plant. If you go down Beeson Road, past Ivy Redmond Park to the very end, there's a gate. If you go through that gate, it's locked, but if it's open and you go through it, the wastewater treatment plant is at the end of that road. Our intentions have been to remove that plant for several years to clean up that site. We took bids on that. The low bid was $1,078,428. We are not recommending going with the low bid because their cost did not include the proper disposal of the hazardous waste. So we're recommending the next low bid of $1.23 million for that job. The money will come from our water sewer fund over at City County Utilities, so it will not impact our general fund, and we can start that work just as soon as we get the approval from the board if the board so chooses to do that.
Okay, are there any questions?
Curtis, how much money's in our CCUC account?
I'm trying to remember. I sent that out about a month. Well, actually, probably a few weeks ago. I think there is.
I think I did say I can go back and look it
Yeah,
up.
I'll go back and look because I'm not exactly sure, but I want to say it's $7 or $8 million.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's all, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Appreciate Doran's work in getting those bids. That's a project I know you have been concerned about for a while, and it would have taken a lot of effort to put together what we needed in a bid for that. So I appreciate your work and your department's work in that regard. And Curtis, also, thank you for your work in that effort. All right. Item F is consideration of an amendment to an employment agreement with the town manager and an ordinance setting the town manager's compensation for fiscal year 2020, 2021. Mr. Hooker, have you gotten the items yet, or are we still waiting on them?
I do not have that yet, Madam Mayor.
You will have those, Mayor, tomorrow morning.
Okay.
They are completed. Excuse me, and you'll have them first. Everyone will have them first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for your help, Mr. Wolf. All right.
You're welcome.
All right. I think that is self-explanatory, but does the board have any questions? Okay. Item G is consideration of an ordinance for budget amendment number 3 for fiscal year 2020, 2021. Mr. Swisher.
Madam Mayor, the budget amendment is not loaded onto the website yet. We opened the bids this morning for the demolition of the old wastewater treatment plant that I just discussed. That is the biggest part of the budget amendment, showing that money going out and coming in from CCUC. So we will load that budget amendment tomorrow for the board. There are a few other items in it, but that is by far the biggest one in it.
All right. Item H is consideration of an ordinance to regulate trucks on Cedar Knoll Drive.
Cedar Knoll Drive is the short road behind the Dollar General and Farm Bureau Insurance Building on Highway 66 South. We've had some issues with trucks parking on that road, so we're recommending that we make that road no through trucks, and so that will stop them from traveling on that road. And we've had some issues also with them turning down there to go turn around, and once they get down there to turn around, they can't turn around. So we're recommending putting up a sign for no through trucks.
Okay. Any questions? And then along with the ordinance and the sign, will we contact some of the navigational programs?
We will, yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Item I is consideration of an ordinance updating Chapter 4, buildings and building regulations. Mr. Swisher?
I'll let Mr. Hatling cover this one.
All right.
Yes, this is just a simple cleanup to this section with updates on new names and divisions. We noticed there was a pool provision that conflicted with the UDO. And so this is kind of a little cleanup of the town code section regarding this portion of the town code.
Are there any questions? All right, that brings us to the consent agenda with approval of minutes for the September 30 briefing meeting and the October 6th regular meeting. Speakers from the floor, and again, citizens can come to Town Hall and speak from the courtroom. Citizens can send in a written comment to Keith Hooker, or citizens may call in to make their voice heard. Given that this is a remote meeting, the votes for the public hearings will not be taken on Wednesday night. The vote will be set at the meeting Wednesday night. but it'll be at least 24 hours after the conclusion of the public hearing. All right, the next item on the regular agenda would be the town manager's report. Mr. Swisher, are there any items you plan to bring up at the meeting?
There's none I plan to bring up right now. I do have an answer for Mayor Pro Tem Fulton's question about the balance in the reserve fund at City County Utilities is $7.5 million.
Thank you, Curtis.
Okay. The next item would be 7, which is matters to be presented by the town attorney. Mr. Wolf, are there matters you anticipate presenting at the meeting on Wednesday night?
I do not know of any at this point, Mayor.
All right. And then item 8 would be matters to be presented by the mayor and board of aldermen. And then, of course, we will not adjourn. We will continue the meeting for the purposes of voting on the public hearings. So this brings us to the end of the regular agenda. Mr. Swisher, is there anything that you see that we'll need to add to that agenda?
Not that I know of right now, Madam Mayor.
Right. Is there any matter on the regular agenda that we haven't fully addressed that we need to address?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, then we'll go back to the briefing agenda. We are to item 2, matters to be presented tonight by the mayor and board of aldermen. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, do you have anything to present tonight?
Yes, ma'am. I have 2 things. Curtis, I took a phone call from, I want to say Mr. Crater. I call him Ronnie. So he lives over there off of Lake, and that new development that's with the cul-de-sac, evidently there are cars parked all around that curve. So can we address that? Because when you're trying to pull out, you can't see. And there's actually a trailer with wood on it. I rode by it. And then the other one is, I think years ago, you told him you'd teach him how to turn the lights off at 4th of July Park. And they're still on at night. And so he asked me to question that.
Yeah, I was trying to think. He lives down off of
Matt. Yes.
Okay, yeah, and he and I have talked several times about the lights at I park on at night. And it's just the way that the timer works. Once it's turned off manually and turned back on, but it's an ongoing problem. And he is correct. Some nights they're on almost all night. So we've looked at different ways of correcting that problem, and the best way to do it is to get an automatic timer on it to where we can control it from our phone or from a laptop. And we're looking at that. But in the meantime, we may just have to work with the police department to turn it off if they ride by and see them.
Well, I'll be close now. If I can help, I will.
Yeah.
And then if you'll check on those cars, because I rode down there and there were evidently, they're just parked right around the curve.
Okay. Coming down Lake Drive?
Mm-hmm. Going into that cul-de-sac with the new homes.
Yes.
Pastor Elliott lives over there.
There are several cars parked on Lake Drive. We went by there, and at times there's 2 big trucks with an enclosed trailer. And we've had that gentleman move the trailer. But I was through there yesterday, and he's correct. There are cars there. Probably the best way to correct it is to make it no parking on that street in that area. Otherwise, they're pretty much free to park, as you can park cars. They're not allowed to park trailers on there, but they can park cars. So the best way to correct it would be to make it no parking on that street, which that may lead to another problem if I don't know what they would do with the cars, because the driveways are not that deep. So once they put 2 cars in the driveway side by side, they don't have enough room for a 3rd car. And that's what it appears to be, as most of the houses have parked 2 cars in the driveway, and they either have a car or a truck in addition to the 2 cars. And so there's no way to get it in the driveway. So, but he is correct. It's an issue there when you come down through there.
Maybe if we look at it, I think it's the house that's on the corner right there where you turn in.
Turn into the new subdivision.
Yes,
going
sir.
In cul-de-sac.
Yeah. So maybe we could give them an alternative solution, you know, just so you're not hindering that stop sign and your sight vision, you know, because you really have to pull out in the road to see around those cars. And I think it's mainly that house.
Okay. Yeah. If they're blocking the line of sight, then we can certainly have them move.
Maybe we can, you know, be creative. I mean,
we'll go by and take a look at it again and see. Now, does he live he lives on Matt Road, not in the cul-de-sac,
right,
correct?
but he's coming out. And so he's coming out from Matt Road, right? And taking a ride on Lake. And there's cars coming down Lake that's got to go around the trailer with the truck. So then that's what's happening. And I can't remember, is it Westlow where we talked about the house?
It is. And I will get an update for you on that. I know Mike Horney in Community Development was working on that issue. You're talking about the one with probably 15 cars in the front yard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me about that one too. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Boyer?
Just a question, since our regular meeting is on a Wednesday next week, and we have some public hearing items that we need to vote on, I wonder if we could check our calendars to set the time, because it'll likely be on a Friday, which sometimes is valuable time for people, so that we can plan on when we're going to have the public hearing.
Do you have a time you'd like to suggest?
Well, I think Friday is fine, and I would recommend 4:00 if that fits other people's schedules.
I'm available Friday, but not late. If we could do earlier, that'd be wonderful, like 1 or 2.
And I'm fine anytime on Friday.
I think we could do it Friday morning, because it will have been more than 24 hours. 24 hours would be at some point on Thursday night.
I'm fine anytime Friday.
The town attorney doesn't do Fridays, but he will for this board, but only Friday mornings. Don't take away my Friday afternoons.
Take away his nap time.
Let's
Friday
do it
morning
early
works
and
for me.
somebody fix breakfast.
Yeah, I'm fine Friday morning.
How does 10:30 sound?
That would be fine.
Fine with me.
Okay, and Keith, we'd like to get any comments that you've received by 5:00 on Thursday, sent to us on Thursday, or maybe 4:45, 4:30, sent to us on Thursday evening. And then,
Madam Mayor, that would not be 24 hours after the public hearing.
Correct,
Since the public hearings will be between 7 and 8 on Wednesday.
Correct. Could you send us the supplemental public comments by 10 a.m.?
Yes.
On Friday morning?
Yes.
And then post everything on the website?
Correct. And
by 10
it would be up to the board to determine the cutoff time, but obviously Thursday evening, you could make it anywhere from as early as about 8 or 9 o'clock Thursday evening, or you could make it as late as, say, 8 o'clock Friday morning.
I think 8:00 a.m. Friday morning would be a good time, because that is before you would be checking the emails to send to the board. That would give you from 8 a.m. until 10 to get them to us and to get them posted on the website. But if you've received comments on Thursday or on Wednesday evening, if you could go ahead and send them to the board so they'd have the most time to review everything. Does it sound like workable? Okay, and to the board, do each of you have time on Friday morning before 10:30 to review comments if you have received them from Keith Hooker in the morning?
I would be fine.
Okay, I'll just so we're clear. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, would you have time to have reviewed comments?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, and Alderman Boyer will have had time. Alderman Cruz, would you have had time to review comments you received in the morning?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Thompson, would you have time to review comments prior to that meeting?
Sure, thanks.
Okay, and Alderman Penix, would you have time to review comments received in the morning?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. I think that that allows us to have a morning meeting. That allows adequate time for review of all of the comments and allows time for the comments to be posted. So I think that would work. Curtis, do you agree?
Yes, I think that'll be fine.
Okay. All right. So, Alderman Boyer, do you have anything else for tonight?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Cruz, do you have anything you'd like to present this evening?
No, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Thompson?
I do not. Thanks.
Okay. Alderman Penix?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And do we have a closed session this evening? Oh, Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, do you have an additional question or comment?
I do. Sorry about that, Mayor. I just want to say thank you. I got an email about the 2 lots, Curtis, on Cherry Street that got mowed. So was that Doran? So thank you, Doran, for all y'all are doing, and citizens appreciate it. So sorry. I meant to pass that along. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to present tonight, Mr. Swisher?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Anything that you'd like to present, Mr. Wolf?
No, ma'am. I just sent out a motion for closed session. If one of the board members would be kind enough to introduce that, I'd appreciate it. It's a motion I had sent out earlier. I just sent it out for your convenience again a few minutes ago.
I have it here. I can read it. It's my understanding, Madam Mayor, that there are certain matters about which our town attorney needs to advise us and which fall within the attorney-client privilege for discussion in closed session, as well as matters of personnel that the board must address. I therefore move, Madam Mayor, that the board go into closed session to confer with our legal counsel under the attorney-client privilege for such purposes, as well as discuss certain matters of personnel for the town.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Boyer. I have a second by Alderman Cruz. This is a remote meeting, so we will do a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. It is unanimous, and we will now go to closed session. Okay, welcome back. We are back in open session for the briefing meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. Is there any further business before the board this evening?
I have none.
Mr. Swisher, is there anything further before the board this evening?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then may I have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
Motion
May I
to
have a
adjourn.
motion by Chris Thompson? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
by Alderman Boyer. We'll do a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor. Good night.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, and happy Halloween.